Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette, and well, I know you know that. But I just like to remind myself how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair. Folks, could not be doing this without without you and without everything that you do for us here at the show. So I just want to thank you for the liking, the sharing, the subscribing, and everything that you do on a regular basis. You guys all know this, so I love you and really appreciate your support over all these years. As we get going today, let me make sure that I take care of business. I'm going to have to take a sip of my preferred beverage. Oh man, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. You all know what we're drinking. That's right, it's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Folks, I am truly blessed to be sitting in this chair. Uh, Freedom Hill Coffee is blessed as well. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we support them. Folks, you all know how important veterans are here to our show and to us. And folks, if you're a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for everything you've done. And if you didn't go and do what you did, tell you what, I wouldn't even be able to have a thought or a speak a word with the way that I talk because that freedom would have been gone a long time ago. And because of you, it's not. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. So does Freedom Hill Coffee. Folks, Freedom Hill Coffee is absolutely, it helps veterans and, they support veterans as well. So look them up and check them out and tell them that Power Man sent you. All right. Now we're going to try and recover from one of the worst ad reads I've probably ever done, but I'll apologize to them later. Folks, I just wanted to give you some quick thoughts today. Welcome to another Steel Core moment where we solidify our core, where we stand up straight, where we don't take any more, nonsense and grief, and where we get our mind and our body and our spirit and our faith right for the day. I am endeavoring to have this be a daily episode. Trying really hard to do that for you guys. That seems to be what everybody wants, is to be able to have these come out 5 days a week. At the very least, a lot of you guys are listening to this Steel Core Moment stuff when you're going to work, and that type of thing. And I love that. Thank you so much for the feedback that you guys are giving us on these episodes. This is my chance to talk directly to you. And of course, we have fantastic interviews with these just powerful men that come on here with these great stories. And I want to keep bringing those to you as well. But I also want to share with you my thoughts and get yours in return. Folks, if you're new to listening to this podcast, you may think, man, this guy just comes on here. He talks, talks about all this stuff. He gives everybody his opinion. Who does he think he is? This is not a one-way show. If you're new, you just haven't figured that out yet. Folks, this is a two-way show. And my listeners that have been with me from the start, you folks who send hundreds of DMs, okay, and leave reviews and leave comments, and things like that on social media about every episode. Folks, every episode we do is a two-way conversation. So when I come up here and I, sit at this microphone and I tell you, hey, this is what I think, blah, 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 I encourage you to respond back. I mean, really, we have thousands of downloads and hundreds of DMs. So, there's still plenty of room for people to be talking and sharing their opinions. I'm going to share one with you today. I have been listening to so many child experts, right, and people who are raising their kids, and they're writing books, and they're going on podcasts, and they're guesting, and they're talking about this is how you raise kids in today's world, and this is the intelligent way to raise kids, and this is the productive, emotional, supportive way to raise kids. And look, everybody has a little piece of a good point. There's really good information out there. So I'm not somebody who just sort of shoots it down the minute I hear some buzzword that triggers me. Okay. I listen and I hear what people are saying. And when I'm listening to it, I'm not just listening to it to pick it apart. I'm listening to it and I'm imagining my children, all three of them who are very, very different from one another. And how would I be implementing that with them back when they were younger? Right. And sometimes, I can see a little light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes I go, there's no way in the world that ever would have worked. What in the world are they talking about? But I do see a pattern, and there's two patterns, and we're going to talk about one of those today. But one of those is that parents really right now are trying to make excuses, and I don't say that lightly. But more than ever before, we are trying to make excuses. We want to be able to say, look, I did the best I could. I put in the work. They just, acted this way. I can't confront them. I can't discipline them, because that would be wrong. I don't want to cause all this hurt later on, blah, blah, blah. And they don't want to discipline their children and teach them and raise them. And that's not easy. And I see more parents, shrinking away from it, especially the millennial generation shrinks from that. Now, I have to also, if I'm going to criticize, I have to give credit. The Gen Z generation is really pushing hard back towards consequences and discipline and learning and teaching and being involved, homeschooling, things like this. So also, if you're going to throw shade, you got to also throw some sunshine. And so when you look at these things, I'm noticing a lot of that. The biggest thing, though, aside from that, is man, people don't teach consequences anymore at all. And that's been going on for a while. When you look at the young people that are out rioting today, for instance, and they're out, throwing bricks at cops, and they're packing snowballs with rocks in New York and throwing them at the police, and these kids, and I'm going to call them that, if they're in their 20s, right? These guys, they never learned that there were consequences for their actions. Okay. I watched a video the other day of this young lady who was in a protest, and she laid down in front of a car. And she didn't lay down in front of the car like 100 yards ahead of it, give it a chance to stop. She walked up to the car, jumped on the hood, started beating the hood. The driver speeds up. The young lady falls off the front of the car, in the front of the car. The driver is looking around trying to see where the young lady is. Can't back up because there's 10 protesters behind him. Starts to inch forward, assuming someone's going to get out of his way. And I watch this young lady scoot herself closer underneath the front of the car. Please hear that last part again. Okay? Whatever player you're on, hit that 15-second back button and listen to that statement again. I mean, if you want to protest, go protest. If that's what you believe, go for it. But there are consequences to your actions. And this lady was injured badly. Badly. And the video is very clear as to what happened. Now, you probably haven't seen this, okay? Because mainstream media will not cover this, because the video is very clear that it's this young girl's fault, okay? So they're not going to put it out there because it doesn't make law enforcement look bad. But the fact of the matter is this was so clearly a poor decision. I mean, roll out of the way, get up. Then if you want to get back in front of the car, okay, do something where the driver can see you and has to make a decision not to run you over. I mean, look, there's ways to get your point across. This young lady could have died because of her decision. Now, somewhere in her mind, there's no consequences to these decisions. And now she's trying to sue somebody over it. And it's very clear on the video that she caused it, she did it. I mean, it's really awful. But when you look at our young people today, especially, we're not raising our children to understand. You can make your own choice. You have freedom of choice. You have free will, but there's a consequence to the action. Now, nobody is advocating the old way of, okay, hey, you want to touch the fire on that burner on the stove? I told you no. Go ahead and burn yourself. Then you'll learn, right? Kids will learn there's consequences to the action. What I am saying, though, is that we have gotten so soft. We have gotten so worried about the emotional state of these kids that we aren't teaching them these things at all. I heard somebody the other day talking about how can we expect the kid to be, emotionally mature and to understand how to react. That's a very valid point. By the same token, the reason they don't know how to react is because they haven't been taught. So we can acknowledge that they don't know how to react, but then we also have to acknowledge that someone who knows better has to teach them. And that's where we have to come in. And I want to take this down the road a little further. Okay. When you don't discipline your kids and when you don't teach them consequences for their actions, they become entitled. They think they deserve things. They've never been taught that, you know what, sometimes no means no. There are people out there writing books saying, don't say no to your child. Say, not now. Or, you know what, hey, I understand why you feel this way and why you want more of that, but that's not what's happening right now. Okay? So please accept that. What? What? One of the first things you have to teach your child is what no means. Is that going to jar them for a moment that they can't have what they want right at that second? Of course it is. But it's the standard by which you move forward. No means no. It tells the child right off the bat you can't simply have whatever you want the minute you want it just because you want it. It teaches the child there are limits and that they don't have total control over everything and everyone. Now, there's people out there who say, but then that takes away the empowerment of your child. I don't believe our children should be feeling empowered over others. Okay. Um, when you tell your child no, it means something. It's a signal to them to go, oh, that's not okay. Let me figure this out now. And people have this idea that if you tell your child no, that you've just damaged them. Folks, you tell them no and you help them learn. No is a negative thing. They can tell from your body language, from your voice, from the pitch, from the intent. When you look them in the eye and you say no, they get that there's a problem. There's a connection between, father and mother and child. When you say no, they go, not the reaction I was looking for. Didn't get what I wanted. I better figure this out. Isn't that what we want? Do we really want to train them to not hit obstacles? When you introduce no to a child, you are simply introducing an obstacle to them, a barrier, something they have to figure out. You're literally teaching them problem solving from day one. I couldn't get what I wanted. That word no came up. That was the cause, right? So the word no comes up and I don't get what I want. I wonder why. How do I go about getting what I want? All right, let's try something else and see if I get a no. I got another no. Okay, that didn't work. Let me try a different way. No, no, and now I got what I wanted. Next time, I'm not going to do the first two things I did. I'm going to do the third thing I did because I didn't get a no and I got what I wanted. Hello, critical thinking skills, anyone? Problem solving? When you look back at, this pop psychology, uh, there's there's a pretty direct correlation between when we as parents got real soft and stopped saying no, when discipline became a bad thing, like in total, and when children started to take advantage, become entitled, and stop being able to solve problems. I had to teach my children how to solve problems. I have three kids who can look at any problem and look at it creatively, and they can go, how do I fix this? And then I watch their peers, and they literally look at something and go, don't know how to figure that out. Look it up. Is there an app for that? And if there's not an app for it on their phone, they go, Dad, I can't do this. Can you figure this out? Can you tell me how to do this? They can't solve a problem, save their lives. And folks, it isn't because of technology and it isn't because of anything that's happened externally. It's because we raise them that way. I'm putting this out here today because I am seeing today the incredibly far reaching consequence of powerful men who were never told no. of people who are in positions of influence who never learned that there are consequences for your actions. I'm watching it every day. At this point, you've all heard about the sexual harassment cases in Congress that were buried because Congress, including all of the women in Congress, voted to not release the records. And don't even get me started on the Epstein files. Folks, when you have men and women who are saying it's okay for men to force themselves on women, you have a problem. Because you see, that didn't turn into an acceptable behavior overnight. It turned into an acceptable behavior over time. And look around. Is anybody really even outraged by this anymore? We're all numb to it. And what we don't realize is that this all came about because we have been teaching this to our kids. I'm going to tell you something right now. If either of my boys hear the word no, like they've been hearing since they were born, they absolutely understand that no means no, and it means stop pursuing what you're after because it's not okay. Take a step back and figure out what is okay. There isn't a circumstance in the world where my boys would have been with a young lady and she would have said no to them and they would have kept pursuing their goal after hearing no. And yet it's happening with the most influential people in our world. It is happening on a daily basis. There are men literally grabbing women on the street and dragging them down alleys to take what they want. There are illegal immigrants in our country who never learned the word no. They weren't raised in any sort of structure with any discipline. They never were taught that because you have this impulse that you are trying to get satiated, that the word no or stop means you have to stop. When you interview these illegal immigrants who come over here and rape women in this country, they tell you point blank that doesn't mean anything. Well, why did you do it? Because I wanted to. When you're raised in poverty, when you're raised on the street, when you're raised with absolutely no discipline and no guidance, you are literally raised like an animal. I want this, so I'm going to go take it. And there isn't any, evil judgment about it. It's just life. I see this pretty girl. I want her. I'm going to go take her. What's the issue? And yet we have people in this country who are teaching our own children that because they're worried about having to stand up and flex their backbone a little bit and teach them no. This is not a big leap. This is not some kind of, stretch of the imagination to connect these dots. Folks, we have to teach our kids. We have to teach them that there are consequences to their actions. We have to teach them right from wrong. And the only way to do that is to start by teaching them that no means no. Now, there isn't any person listening to this right now who would debate me on, in the instance of a man forcing himself on a woman, that no means no. Anybody? Of course not. But there are a huge number of people who will hear this and say, yeah, but, the kid wants a cookie. You don't, and you tell him no, you're telling him he doesn't have control of his surroundings, and you're teaching him lack, and you're teaching him that the world isn't safe. Oh, bull. You're teaching him that he can't simply have what he wants the moment he wants it. And then he has to take a step back and think about it. Folks, that is a huge piece that's missing. We skipped teaching it. Third world countries don't teach it. Okay? They don't have the structure in place to do it. Kids who are raised on the streets who have don't have parents, who don't have, structure, who don't have any kind of discipline at all. They're just let to live. Okay? Have whatever you want because I want you to be quiet. They're taught that if I want it, I can have it. And that's what they're doing. And you all are sitting here going, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody act like that? And you're teaching your kids the exact same thing. I'm sorry, but the grandfather in me is coming out right now. And we need to wake up and we need to really get back to teaching our children and our grandchildren, okay, that no means no. There are consequences to our actions. And you can't simply have what you want when you want it because you want it, no matter what. I'm looking forward to the DMs on this topic. 90% of my audience is going to agree with this. There's still 10% that won't. And hey, you never know. Sometimes an episode gets picked up by some, progressive organization and they decide to send their bots after me, and then we really have fun. Can't wait. I encourage your feedback. Tell me I'm wrong, but you better come with something other than just because. Let's get discipline back. Let's teach our kids consequences. Let's teach them that no actually does mean no and why. And watch the world start to turn around. We lost a generation here, folks, in the middle. We got a real shot with the one that's learning things now. We got to make the change. And I know you could do it because you have value, because you matter, and because you're worth it. And at some point, you have to believe it. Till next time.